In the previous part, we left off at the scene where Adele and Cera were dancing together on stage when Estra Delavale approached. Let us continue the story with Revan. The blonde-haired man moved closer to the leading couple dancing in the center of the stage. He spoke up, "Are you Lady Adelaide Bonaparte?" Over Cera's shoulder, Adele widened her eyes at the man. All she could see was his golden blonde hair. As for our dear Lord Bonaparte, his brows furrowed deeply, veins standing out prominently, he seemed to be seething with rage. His hand clutched Adele's tightly. At this moment, the young man with the innocent face finally revealed himself. He was none other than Estra Delavale. The atmosphere among the three of them turned peculiarly tense. Estra continued, "Excuse me, our Cera, by now, looked as though he were on the verge of an explosion. No one knew exactly why he was so furious, or perhaps we do, don't we?" Finding his reaction rather baffling, Adele whispered softly, "Let us go. Please just escort me out for now." Only then did Cera's cold, indifferent gaze return to the present. He swiftly turned Adele around and led her away. As they walked off, Cera sarcastically praised her. "Good work." With that, he left her behind and departed from the party altogether. This entire scene did not escape the watchful eyes of Lady Delavale. She turned to Ginevra and said, "Miss Ginevra, have you ever seen His Grace make a mistake while dancing?" She spoke with an unsettlingly chilling gaze. Still oblivious to the undercurrent of the situation, Ginevra innocently replied, "No, that has never happened. He has always been very talented at such things, so." By now, Lucrezia was absolutely livid. "You're right, he does not make mistakes, but he just wavered. I know this because I love Duke Bonaparte very much. He is always under my watch, so there is no mistake." What could have shaken him so? It seemed she was madly, hopelessly in love, so much so that her expression sent a chill down Ginevra's spine. Ginevra let out a nervous laugh, attempting to soothe her. "See, calm yourself, Lady Lucrezia. His sister must have made a snarky comment. Please don't think too much of it. Besides, Lady Adelaide is going to become a member of your family soon, right?" At those comforting words, Lady Lucrezia said nothing. Her gaze, however, grew more dangerous than ever. And then, all of a sudden, her tone shifted, smooth and unsettling. "Yes, that is true. Lady Adelaide will marry my brother, won't she? In the end, that is what will happen." At long last, the banquet had finally come to an end. One by one, the guests departed, leaving only the lingering remnants of the evening behind. The butler spoke up. It took until 4 in the morning for the banquet to finally come to an end. "Good work, Master Bonaparte," the Duke of Bonaparte inquired. "What did the guests say?" The butler replied, "They seemed very pleased with the vases they received as gifts." At that moment, Cera turned to his most trusted aide and asked, "Have you readied the cavalcade?" With a smug grin, the young man responded, "Of course, everything is being prepared with the utmost care. Her ladyship's debutante was perfect. You managed quite the feat. You ought to stop worrying and rest today." The butler then added, "I shall turn down your bed, Your Grace." But our ever-chattering manager couldn't help but continue bragging. "You need to take good care of yourself. The social season begins tomorrow. If you stop being the most eligible bachelor around, the Stellone Company will suffer." Before he could finish, he was met with a sharp smack on the head from the Duke, accompanied by a warning glare. "Go ahead and take care of the rest then. Report anything urgent to me." With that, Cera turned his back and strode away. Yet, from behind, the young man called after him, "Your Grace, happy birthday." A subtle warmth bloomed within the Duke's heart, and a faint smile tugged at the corner of his lips. As he walked into the forest, thoughts drifted through Cera's mind. Her ladyship's debutante was perfect. The shoeshine girl did do well. In the past 3 months, Adele Vivi has excellently executed the role of a lady, the secret daughter of the Bonaparte family, and my dear sister. She came by to see me at my office a few times and began to copy my mannerisms in the most natural way, and even asked me to buy her some jewelry, just as a real sister would. And whenever I bought her what she wanted, she would blush in delight. As these thoughts lingered, he recalled Adele's words. "What if I paired this with the morganite hair accessory you bought me the other day? The lovely rose pink would go splendidly with this pearl, wouldn't it?" Remembering her shy, delicate smiles, so much so that I would begin to imagine that she really was opening up to me. And yet, she had never once tried on any of the jewelry Cera had given her. It seemed the young lady wasn't particularly fond of them. Upon hearing this from the housemistress, The Duke had chuckled to himself, marveling at what an amusing creature she was. Because of that, I was forced to continually torment her. Most people would have gotten angry with me at least once, but that is all she has to say. Where did the woman who brandished a pair of scissors at me go? It seems that she disappeared the night after her initiation at the Galeotto Club, along with her tears. As these musings filled his mind, Cera lit a cigar, the embers casting a faint glow in the dark. And then, from a distance, the sound of footsteps echoed Adele's footsteps. The sight that met the Duke's eyes was almost ethereal. There she was, cradling each blossom as though it were a fragile treasure, her flowing white dress billowing softly in the night breeze. A somber beauty enveloped her figure, and without realizing it, Cera found himself utterly captivated by the scene before him. Adele quietly took a seat on a bench in the garden. Softly, she began to hum a gentle, lilting tune. Suddenly, Cera's voice rang out, "Adelaide." His unexpected call startled Adele so badly that she tripped over the leg of the bench and fell backward onto the ground. The sight made the Duke cry out in alarm, "Adelaide, are you all right?" He hurriedly tossed aside his cigar and rushed over to help her up. At that moment, Adele turned to face him, her eyes filled with mild annoyance. "Brother, what are you doing here?" Cera took her hand to assist her. "I saw you as I passed by and wondered what you were doing," Adele replied. "I was only sitting here for a moment while out on a walk." As he helped her to her feet, Cera cast a glance at the bench, thinking, it must have hurt a lot if that chair hit her. Just then, Adele looked up at her brother and said with a gentle smile, "Should you not be resting? You must be very tired." She really is rational. I have never seen anyone regain their composure so quickly. Cera asked, "Are you worried about me?" Adele answered, "Of course I am. As your sister, it's only natural for me to worry about you." She is so rational that she seems to lack any emotion. With that thought lingering, Cera sat down on the bench and let out a deep sigh. Seeing his expression, Adele softly asked, "Shall I leave you in peace, brother?" Cera looked at his pretend sister and said, "I think I would prefer if you stayed." Adele smiled, "Then I shall sit down next to you." This struck Cera as yet another sign of Adele's remarkable patience. The Duke relit the cigar in his hand. And so, for a time, Cera simply sat there, sharing a rare, quiet moment alone with Adele Vivi. His thoughts wandered to all those times Adele had left the room immediately after they finished speaking, as though she was loath to breathe the same air as me. Once I'm done with the cigar, she will most likely make up some excuse to leave, and in a few days, she will be spending time with Estra, I suppose. At that thought, Cera cast a glance at Adele only to find that, by some coincidence, she was looking at him as well. The Duke felt more conflicted than ever, utterly unable to grasp what it was he truly wanted from this shoeshine girl. After a moment of silence, he finally spoke. "Why do you despise me?" Adele promptly denied it. "I like you very much, brother." Yet, our Duke knew better. Drop the act. Be the shoeshine girl for a moment. Upon hearing that, Adele let out a laugh. "Haha, the shoeshine girl?" Inwardly, Cera scoffed. "Huh. She could fool most anyone with that act." But the Duke wasn't willing to let her off so easily. Still, he pressed on, demanding to know why she hated him. Though honestly, does he truly not know why? Once more, Adele denied it, insisting she liked her brother very much. "You, like me?" Cera echoed back mockingly. Adele smiled softly. "Yes, from the bottom of my heart." And just then, without warning, the Duke tossed his cigar aside and stood up. Leaning down, he brought his face dangerously close to hers, his voice low and biting. "Even if I do this?" Closer and closer Cera moved, an insufferable smirk playing at his lips. The sight of it thoroughly irritated Adele. Suddenly, she wrapped her arms around his neck, her voice teasing. "It is quite pleasing," she whispered. "May I call you Cesare?" As if struck by cold water, the Duke snapped back to his senses, hastily pushing her away. Adele let out a wistful sigh. What a shame. Cera cursed under his breath. Clearly, she wanted him to lose himself to this little trick of hers, with such a hollow look in her eyes. And at that thought, Cera spat out bitter words. "You must be happy that you can be sold off to a nobleman, just like you wanted. But isn't it ridiculous? What's the difference between getting sold off to a brothel versus a nobleman? You may act aloof, but your true nature hasn't gone anywhere. You'll have to hide it well in Estra's presence. That hypocritical bastard won't look at you twice if he finds out who you truly are." But then, Cera froze, noticing the serene, faintly sorrowful expression on Adele's face. It was as if he too realized he had gone too far. The air between them grew strangely heavy. After a long silence, the Duke turned away to leave. With his jaw clenched tight, he still couldn't resist adding one last sneer. Being near you always seems to ruin my mood. In Fornity, the social season takes place twice a year. The spring season spans from April to June, lasting just until the hot summer months begin, and the winter season lasts from December to February, when the weather has cooled down enough for activities again. Cesare signaled the start of the winter social season with his grand birthday celebration, after which House Bonaparty once again hosted the cavalcade. Our handsome, brown-haired young man found himself bowing his head in apology. "I apologize, Master Bonaparte." Cera remained silent. The young man continued, "I never expected it to be this bad." Before he could finish his sentence, the horse behind him neighed loudly. Adele was struggling to keep it under control. Gripping the reins tightly, the young man did his best to steady the animal but still managed to call out, "But I cannot possibly do anything about her ladyship's riding skills on my own. He's usually so tame, but whenever she gets on his back," he thought to himself, exasperated. Meanwhile, Adele was growing increasingly irritated. "He's not wrong, but oh, how it vexes me to hear it." She glanced downward, thinking, "Still, it's far too high. I'm from Kimurah. I've never been on a horse before." Gathering her resolve, she gripped the reins tightly and spoke up. "Brother, what if I were to ride with someone?" At her suggestion, Cera's eyes narrowed. "What?" Adele explained. "The roads do not allow for a carriage, but I also cannot miss out on the social season, so I thought I could ask Sir Eager to join me." Upon hearing her suggestion, Cera's gaze seemed to sharpen, turning colder than before, yet he still gave his consent. Before long, the horse was galloping swiftly along the winding paths, with Eager and Adele sharing a saddle atop its back. As they passed by the sea, Adele spoke. "I am glad I won't have to go swimming, since it's not summer." Hearing that, Eager asked, "Did you never learn how to swim?" Adele replied, "I can, and I used to swim in the rivers quite often, but I am rather afraid of the sea." Eager offered her reassurance. "There are no sharks around Adore." Adele chuckled at his naive remark. "I am not a child, Sir Eager. It's just that the sea is so noisy." She had barely finished her thought when a thunderous sound approached from behind. A group of horses charged forward. Leading them all was none other than Cera himself. The horses raced at breakneck speed. Adele looked on in puzzlement. "What are they doing?" Eager answered, "They are racing." And there, ahead of them all, was Cera, his face radiant with confidence and triumph. The announcement rang out joyfully. "Duke Bonaparte takes the victory." Everyone around seemed to marvel at the outcome, for it was well known that year after year, the Duke always claimed victory in the end. Watching the scene unfold, Adele recalled hearing that the Duke was exceptionally skilled in sports. Perhaps it was true after all. Some of the soldiers grumbled with envy, complaining that Cera's horse was simply too fast, making the competition unfair. Cera laughed heartily and replied, "Go and get yourself one just like it then." It was a carefree, genuine laugh, the kind that caught Adele off guard. So he does joke around and smile with others. But then, just as suddenly, Cera cast a glance toward Adele. The unexpected gaze startled her, but only for a brief moment. Just as quickly, he looked away again. Adele frowned slightly in confusion. "What was that?" "I was only looking because it was interesting. He is always so cold and harsh when he converses with me." Noticing her silence, Eager turned to ask, "Would you like to ride like that as well, my lady?" Adele looked at him, puzzled. Eager explained, "I am quite confident in my equestrian skills." Realizing he was trying to encourage her, Adele smiled slyly. "Are you confident enough to win against my brother?" Eager thought for a moment before replying, "I do not think it impossible." Then, quite suddenly, Eager tugged at the reins, causing Adele to jolt slightly in surprise. Together, they continued riding smoothly down the paths, the wind brushing past them. Adele, clearly enjoying herself, said playfully, "I'll bet on you at the next race. Please bring my brother down a peg or two." Eager chuckled, "Very well. And what happens next in this tangled web of high society? Will Adele place her trust in Sir Eager to finally outshine the ever-victorious Duke? Will Cera continue to cast those fleeting, unreadable glances her way? And most of all, just how long can Adele keep up this flawless act under the sharp gaze of Fornity's most dangerous man? Stay tuned to find out what twists and turns await. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to Revan Ping to follow the next chapters of high society.